On this week's episode of The Geek State, we're taking flight aboard a Phalon drone ship to discuss the 1986 Disney film Flight of the Navigator.
Marvel released the trailer for Black Widow, so Chris called the only girl he knows to talk about it.
Disney Plus is adding a game show, and Jedi Jar Jar Binks will lead the way.
All that and more on this episode of The Geek State.
David was kidnapped by aliens.
The Navigator.
Now he's in for the ride of his life. The exciting conclusion of Flight of the Navigator, Sunday on Disney.
Stand by alert.
This is it.
This is Chris's sister. What is this, some kind of nerd thing? This is The Geek State.
We fell down a ravine and ended up on a planet 560 light years from Earth. This is the Geek State. You're in the right place for all the cool stuff going on in the world of geek. My name is Chris, and instead of James this week, who is out helping with his family, we've got Dan and Jess on the show this week. And
Hi.
Yeah, it's good.
Hello.
It's good to have you guys back. It's been, I think, since the Captain Marvel episode.
Yeah,
It's possible.
I think so.
It's been a while. And fun fact, one of the most downloaded episodes of the show. So
Well, of course.
exactly. We got to just some sort of secret sauce. There's something about having you guys on that just, not that it's about the numbers and downloads and stuff, but I've noticed a trend. That one and the Elvira episode.
Well, I come from a big Italian family, so
That's what it is. It's just
We're very popular.
it's the big mass email forwards to all the family that brings the downloads into the show. Well, welcome to the episode. We are back from a great Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had a great one yourself.
We did.
yeah, very, very, very thankful.
Well, I'm still feeling quite stuffed from all the festivities and stuff, but I am very excited because of Cyber Monday. I don't know if you guys partook in any of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals going on, but picked up the Regal Cinemas Unlimited plan. They had a $60 off for if you paid in full. You had to pay in full for the whole year, which worked out to be about $150, but I can go see any movie I want as many times as I want. So,
Oh, wow.
They're going to lose money on you, sir.
Yeah.
this December specifically. Now I already have paid for my tickets for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, but now I can just go. I have no limitations.
Yeah, totally.
They're gonna know
and when
my
you have
name.
all those horrible theater experiences, you can just walk out knowing you can come back at a better time.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that part. Like now, if I can go see a movie now that maybe I wasn't too excited about, and then just decide, you know what, I'm leaving, and not feel any guilt.
Yeah, or go see something that you might not have paid money to go see, but since you're already in it to win it, so you may find a new movie that would be your pick of the week, or who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take a chance. I can take a chance on Dora and the Lost City.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's already on
exactly.
video. Oh, well, it's good to have you guys on. I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about a movie that is really near and dear to me, and we're going to talk about Flight of the Navigator and really go into that now that it's on Disney Plus. And I'm real excited to kind of dive into that, but we got some exciting news to talk about, and we'll cover it over in the news section. All right, this week in the news, we've got a couple of stories we're going to talk about. One is the very first post-in-game Marvel Cinematic Universe film that is coming. So this is our first look at what's coming in the post-in-game kind of universe. And the funny thing is, it takes place before Infinity War, and it's the Black Widow trailer that dropped today as of recording. I was a little concerned. I had seen some rumors that this was going to come out tomorrow, so it was going to kind of throw everything off. But for some reason, the marketing gods at Marvel Disney decided to throw us a freebie. And we get a lot, actually. It's more than a teaser. I would say this is a full-fledged trailer. It's set between Set between Civil War and Infinity War. We see Natasha meet up with a former graduate from the Red Room, where she was trained by the KGB. She teams up with family, including David Harbour, who plays the Red Guardian. It's got Rachel Weisz and a lot of cool stuff. What do you think, man? I'm sure y'all both have seen this.
It's a lot. I mean, I've only seen it once, but now the thing that's amazing to me is, so it came out 16 hours ago. There's already videos online about like things you've missed in the trailer, and it's like, what did you do today? Like,
Yeah, I thought it's a lot, but also like it's not that much. I want to be fully on board because I like Scarlett Johansson. I like the character of Black Widow. I want there to be more female-driven, female-directed superhero movies, but also like, do we need this? The trailer didn't convince me that this movie needs to exist.
This movie should have existed.
Anyway, but
it should have. Yeah. It should have already happened. That's the thing.
Right.
Maybe if we had this, I would have cared more when she died in that pit.
Spoiler? No, I think we're past that.
No, it's in game. Everyone saw it.
Everybody saw that movie.
Was it a pit or was it a ravine? Oh, never mind.
That's a different movie. That's a different movie. We'll talk about that.
But yeah, I'm going to see it. It looks like it's going to be great. I love the sort of like watching her fight with someone who is like very equally matched. And I think there's going to be some good things about it. And I'm hoping that it makes sense in the bigger picture of where the MCU is going in this phase. But also I'm just not convinced there's any purpose for it yet. And that bums me out because I want this to be moving us forward. And I feel like it's taking us backward for some reason that they haven't justified to me yet.
Right. The trailer definitely doesn't make the case for that, unless what we're seeing in this movie are characters and situations that we don't understand how they fit in yet with the bigger Marvel universe. Based
on this trailer, I would definitely see the David Harbour movie.
Oh yeah. Like I don't know much about the Red Guardian as a character. In comics, he has a much different look to him. It's mostly just like red spandex and a white star. And this, it's sort of, he's got a very I'm communist Captain America.
Yeah.
Or
Captain Communist.
Or he came off of Homestar Runner, which is the first thing I thought of. I was just like, oh,
it's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. I do get a very Winter Soldier, almost like a Jason Bourne film vibe.
Yes, yeah. I do like the Jason Bourne-ness of it all.
Right.
I'm a big fan of that. I think it's gonna be a cool movie. Like, I will say, I'm excited to see it. It makes me want to see the movie. They've given us, they've trained me to expect so much from how it all fits together that this one, I'm not seeing how it's going to fit together. Yeah. And I'm disappointed in the thing that they're the ones that told me I wanted in the first place.
Right. And maybe it's that, and I don't know the name of the character that she plays, but I don't even have the actress's name written down here, but when the trailer starts and she runs into somebody and they have kind of a little fight at the beginning, I'm almost thinking like that's kind of, she's going to take up the mantle of being the Black Widow. Maybe that's where they're going, like let's introduce
that too.
Cause that's kind of what they did with the Falcon, at the end of Endgame, where he's kind of, we'll see that in the Disney Plus series, with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, and see kind of Falcon taking up the mantle of Captain America, perhaps. And this might be somewhat of that kind of thing. And that's sort of what we've been seeing recently with everything post. Oh, I guess we did get Spider-Man Far From Home, but that's to me, it's kind of like it's a kind of sort of MCU film just because it's still Sony and, and it was
really kind of like the little like button on the end of this last phase too.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it too. It was sort of an epilogue.
And at some point they're going to have to get past though, like we're passing the mantle, like, okay, we got it. Everybody's doing new things now. Like
you've got a bajillion characters. Yeah. Like Marvel's got thousands of characters and now they've got the bigger sandbox to play in. You've got the Fantastic Four. If you want to try to use them, with the Fox. Yeah. Just give it a pause, or start bringing in some of the, the mutant universe. And I think that that's still a ways away, but I think it's almost better to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. I think people can not forgive the Phoenix movie that happened, but just say, okay, we're going to restart and pick a different X-Men team, like not the ones that we've seen in the other ones. Start off with a different X-Men team and then
we're
slowly
not
integrate
for X-Men.
Right, exactly. There's also bajillions to choose from. So I'm pretty excited about it. I do kind of feel the same way you do, Jess, that there's sort of I don't know where this fits in, but they haven't really let us down so far.
Yeah. They're going to get my $12.
Well, yeah.
They're not going to get my $12 because I already paid in full for the next year. So I don't know how that all works, but
suck on that, Disney.
they're really going to be hurting from that. So, but I'm excited to going back to the Movie Pass. I'm curious to see how that all kind of works and all that. So it's on my app.
Yeah, so you need a new segment of the show where it's like the random movie I watched this week.
I know, and I'm gonna need to go see one like once a week to really make it worth the money.
Right, exactly.
Here's something that's really cool. So I know y'all are on Disney Plus, and I'm on Disney Plus, and James is on Disney Plus. Everybody's on Disney Plus. And there's a lot of cool stuff that's there already. And we know that there is some more Star Wars TV shows coming our way with the Cassian Andor show, Obi-Wan, which is going to be fantastic based upon that third episode of The Mandalorian, which was directed by Deborah Chow, who is directing all of the episodes of Obi-Wan. But wait, there's more. Today, Star Wars announced a brand new show that's going to be coming to Disney Plus, and I think this is going to be this will be the next thing that lands, because the production turnaround for this type of show won't take them very long if they haven't already begun shooting, and it's called Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. And so basically it's a game show for children, and it's going to be, the way it's described is very almost like Legends of the Hidden Temple meets American Ninja Warrior, but with children, and it's Star Wars themed.
Yeah, so basically my 6-year-old daughter is going to lose her mind.
Right, and this will be what she'll want to do after she gets on the cooking show.
Right, because her favorite things in the world are watching American Ninja Warrior and commenting on how they can do it better. And also when she goes to Disney to do Jedi training.
Right.
So this is like tailor-made for her. It's right up her alley. She's going to love it.
I'm sad that this is just for kids. Like I wish that there was like a special like grown-ups edition, because I want to do this. Like, this is super cool. There'll be like, from what I've been reading, there's like 3 rounds. One takes place in a forest planet. The other one takes place on a spaceship of some kind, and the last one is in the Jedi Temple.
Oh wow!
And of course, it's a game show, so you got to have Mark on the show as the host, which that's not happening. He's busy, but who's not busy is Ahmed Best, better known as the voice of Jar Jar Binks. I'm assuming he will be in the role of a Jedi, like he'll be some sort of Jedi host, similar to like at Disney when they do the Jedi training.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, it's not Star Wars without a droid, and there'll be some sort of droid. We don't have many details, except it's going to be voiced by Veep's Mary Holland.
So, I think that's going to be good.
That'll be good.
I just can't imagine any kid not liking this. I already saw on Twitter the comments of like, "Who asked for this?" I'm like, it's not for you, dude. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I'm so excited to have something that we can sit down and watch with.
And both
Lindsay,
enjoy, yeah.
that we can enjoy with her, that doesn't involve like maybe a unnecessary musical number.
Right. Yeah, and I'm tired of Googling books that I read as a child or stories I heard as a child to figure out how they ended up having offspring, and those offspring are now on a TV show.
Yeah, she's super into Disney's Descendants, so we're going to be real excited to pivot away from that.
Yeah, that's the good thing about Disney Plus, is there's almost a never-ending stream of content that you can kind of jump back and forth between. I mean, just kind of on that Disney Plus thing, I was just reminiscing today while I was prepping for the show and getting all the stuff ready for the Flight of the Navigator conversation coming up. But just how Disney was for us growing up was so centered around VHS tapes and having that collection,
white plastic case.
Yeah, and even just the like how nostalgic I am for the intros to those videotapes, the little video promo that would run on the on the super old videotapes.
Oh yeah, coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was one that I have stuck in my head. It's from like the really old ones from like the 80s. And there's like a song and it shows clips from all of these movies. I'm like, I don't even, it's like Apple Dumpling Gang. And then there's like a clip from Pollyanna and then like, Escape from Witch Mountain and stuff that was, the Black
Song
Hole.
of the South.
Yeah, that's in there actually. Yeah. It's kind of weird, but that was like you wore out those tapes. And then of course, all of those copies of movies that you taped off of ABC's Sunday Night Movie.
Right.
Yep.
With the Michael Eisner
Where you have all
intros.
the old, the old commercials. And
have y'all been watching the Imagineering story on Disney Plus?
It's funny you mentioned that. Jessica's brother was in town for Thanksgiving, and he was watching one of them. And now I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Yeah, we need to go back and watch the rest of them.
Because that's right in my wheelhouse. Is like how things came to be, and and then where it's like, well, we didn't think it was gonna make it, or we pushed Walt through a maze in a office chair, which I think is what part of the haunted the haunted hayride.
Yeah
Haunted
hayride.
So
that's like the version of the Haunted Mansion that I have. It's like it's the attraction in your backyard that you make your parents go through. We had a few of those growing up where we put on like carnivals and Batman stunt shows where my dad was the bad guy.
A zoo and dinosaur exhibit, if the stories I've heard are true.
Yeah, that's also a true story. My sister was in town, and we were having dinner and reminiscing upon all of the random interests that I've had over the years. When it was hardcore into Batman and forcing my sister and her friends to be in my like little movies. Where the girl next door was like, well, I can be Catwoman. And she ran next door, put on her black dance leotard and had cat ears, and was like,
nice.
Perfect. And I was like, well, I'm Batman, obviously. My sister was Penguin. And she stuffed her shirt and put black eyeshadow.
Did she choose to be Penguin, or did you make her be Penguin?
The memory is a little fuzzy because it could have been a little bit of both. I
hope she bit you in the nose.
Oh, no, she didn't actually. But the funny thing is, we hadn't even seen Batman Returns yet. We'd only seen the trailer.
Wow.
And I remember, so that movie came out like I could not have been. I couldn't have been older than 11 or 12 at that time, and. Or maybe even younger. I may have been 10. And I had seen so many behind the scenes features of how movies were made that I was like, well, we don't have any sets for this movie. So the closest thing that I found was a light blue bed sheet that I hung up in the living room. And I was like, well, we'll record all of our stuff in front of this. And then, I was like, well, and then I'll fix it. We'll put the backgrounds in later.
I'll fix it in post. Yeah.
And I was like, and I was just so full of it at 10. A, I had no equipment to do such a thing. And B, I really wish I knew where that was, because now I think I know I could replace.
Yeah, now you definitely could.
Yeah.
I think the blue might have not been blue enough. It was like more of sky blue, and I don't think I'll have enough color contrast to do it. But anyways, Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge is coming early 2020 to Disney Plus. We're looking forward to that, and maybe one of these days your little one will be able to be a full-fledged Jedi Master on the Jedi Temple Challenge. See how that audition process works.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting.
We got the officials counting.
This is a feature presentation.
And now, on with the show.
One of my absolute favorite films of all time, and it sounds hyperbolic, but it's not, is Flight of the Navigator. It came out August 1st, 1986. I definitely did not see this in theaters, but it did quite well, actually. $18 million at the box office with an estimated budget of only $6 million. It was directed by Randall Kleiser, and he also did movies like Grease and a few others. Grease is the only one that is sticking out in my head, but his IMDb page is quite long. He's done quite a few things. He's even recorded a few short films for Saturday Night Live back in the original years of that show.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of surprised, kind of looking through it and seeing that. So that's pretty cool. And I kind of wanted to start out because I don't remember exactly when I saw this movie, because I feel like it's been a part of just my earliest memories of movies, and then also strangely like a part of my father and I's just everyday conversation. And I'll explain that.
Interesting.
I'll tell you more about that. But curious for you guys, when was the first time did y'all see? Were you kids when you saw this, or was it something you discovered later?
So we're about the same age, you and I. So I have a similar kind of thing. Like I don't think I saw it in the theaters, but we had a VHS of it, and it's just always sort of been around. So I've seen it, I don't know, 4 billion times, maybe 5 billion.
I've seen it twice. Once last night and once today. Okay.
Well, that's cool. That's interesting because there's a bit of nostalgia that definitely plays a role in how I see the film. And it sounds like the same thing with you, Jessica. And then for Daniel, for you, this is a recent thing. Like for me, when I never saw The Goonies until I was an adult, and it doesn't connect to me. I know. What's wrong with my upbringing?
Gosh.
I know
I'm so sorry for you.
I know. I feel kind of robbed because I don't have the nostalgia for that film that other people my age have.
So you just have to watch it based on its merits?
Yeah, and it kind of revisit the Goonies, folks, and clear your mind of any nostalgia. And it's still a really fun adventure film. And I can see why a lot of people have really nostalgic, because you can identify with somebody, in that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody can be like, that's me, And
the scene where he's flying and they're playing the Beach Boys.
Oh, yes, we'll talk about that. I want to talk about music because that also is a huge thing.
So I remember that. I remember that's the thing that cued in, because I was like, oh, I remember that commercial. Like, and it seemed like it was on like in every commercial break. And I want to say there were Happy Meal toys that I can vaguely remember.
Maybe.
Now I need them. I need all of them.
I want to say there were also glasses somewhere that I had a friend who I have told many stories about named Jimmy Bush, and I think he had the glasses, or
like drinking glasses.
Yeah, like drinking glasses.
Interesting. So this is a film that you were definitely aware of at the time.
Oh yeah, I knew it existed. I still because when we were talking about doing this, and I still in my head would get this one confused with The Last Starfighter. Yeah. And now, having watched the movie, I have no idea why that is.
Yeah, they're not the same at all. Like, they're very different. There's the thing with my dad and I, we loved this movie so much that if I asked for something or whatever, and required kind of a response from my dad, every once in a while he would respond back with compliance.
Compliance.
Oh, nice.
And it was, and like still to this day, like it comes up, and my mom says it sometimes, and it's just like, how is this movie in particular? Like there's way bigger films, Star Wars and stuff that, are so quotable. And it's Flight of the Navigator that continues to pop up. One of the things that struck me after watching it most recently, now that it's on Disney Plus and it looks amazing, it's so much better than how I remember seeing it for the first time, is how unsure I was watching this again of like, what is this even about? Like the story, I don't know. Like I understand the main plot. I mean, I get it, but it's sort of like
it's a frisbee contest, right?
Yeah, it's about dogs and frisbees. I mean, that's how the movie opens. I mean,
it's like the dog version of that volleyball scene from Top Gun.
It's the Disney version. It's the Snow Dogs 5 version.
Yeah, I remember, like, if you would have asked me before I rewatched this recently, like, what's the movie about? I was like, oh, this kid ends up on this spaceship and he has this, like, super epic adventure. He's gone for, like, ever. And I was like, oh, this takes place over, like, one afternoon, basically.
Pretty
much. From the time
much.
he gets on the ship to the time he gets home, it's, like, 4 hours or something. And I was like, oh, I felt like there was so much more in the ship than, like, we went up high. We went in the water, we went to the left, and then we went back to the right. Like, oh, that's cool too.
Right. Yeah. So getting back to the kind of the beginning, this movie is about David Freeman, who ends up being taken by a spaceship. He is given all the star charts and stuff just as an experiment, and because time travel is apparently risky on humans, he's dropped back off on Earth in the exact same spot 8 years later. One of the things when I was watching it again, I just noted kind of the parenting style of the 1970s, how different. Now, I don't know if that is because the film was made in 86, was those decisions to portray parenting in the 70s a kind of like, for the time to make people go like, wow, parenting was different in the 70s, in the 80s, but on their way home from that Frisbee tournament, they dropped Jeff off at Billy's house. And when they cut to this shot of Billy's, there's a ton of kids like in a slip and slide, and they all have like sparklers, and there are no adults walking around. And Jeff is like an 8-year-old kid.
But that's kind of my memories of the 80s, to be honest. Like, go play outside. Don't come home till it gets dark.
Right. And also, when they dropped off Jeff, he didn't have to get out of his seatbelt or nothing.
Yeah, because they were in the back of the station wagon just like hanging out. And I was like, ooh, that I remember too. Okay, watching this as a parent, I was just like, ooh, but I was like, no wonder your kid got abducted. Because they're like, oh, your little brother's walking through the woods. Go find him and bring him home.
Go send the 12-year-old into the woods.
Yeah, to find the 8-year-old who left 5 minutes ago and is walking through the woods.
Right.
And then we're all going to get on a boat to go to dinner.
We're going to make some burgers and shoot off some fireworks. It'll be great. So the other thing that I noted is when they get back to the house for the first time, and David goes up to his bedroom, which is important for us to see his bedroom and where it is for what happens later, obviously. But there's a storyline about him having this crush on this girl named Jennifer. And he's like creeping on her with the telescope.
And his dad catches him.
Right. He knew.
Doesn't really address it.
He goes, okay, cool, bud.
Yeah. And he's like, have you thought about talking to girls? And he's like, I don't know. How do you talk to girls? And it was a nice little scene of like, hey, this is what it's a father and son moment. But this is what struck me is when we meet Sarah Jessica Parker's character later on, and she said her name, I was like, wait a minute. Did I just not pick on this as a kid? And I rewound it. And I went back to when he was creeping on Jennifer to see what the name was. And I was like, oh, it's Jennifer. I was like, what a missed opportunity for it to have been when he jumps forward.
The same girl.
Yeah. Oh. And that could have been a little
too tidy. A
little bit. They're still in the same city. It's still Fort Lauderdale. So
that's true.
And it's, it's a movie about a spaceship that, so I mean, is it really that far-fetched that it could be? He falls into a ravine, wakes up, goes home, and there's some subtle differences, like the shrubs have changed on the outside.
So my wife, knowing I've never seen this before, when he falls into the ravine, I was like, oh, that was a horrible jump cut. And Jessica goes, yeah, it was. Because I didn't know what had happened. I was just like, ooh, that's...
Yeah, you were like, wait, these scenes don't match. And I was like, I know, because they're 8 years apart.
Yeah, the subtle... There are some nice continuity errors throughout the movie. If you watch it and you watch David's hair, it gets shaggy in one shot and then back to like more cut, and stuff like it, because it's very inconsistent throughout the movie.
And the dog never ages.
No. Well, it's only been 8 years.
I love, though, like, I think, especially at the time, what a great, cheap filmmaking trick to just do a jump cut, because that was like right in the middle of all that like MTV editing. So people were sort of used to being a little bit thrown by fast edits. But to have that jump cut that kind of makes you go like, something's not right, but they haven't revealed yet that something is not right. So like going into the movie the first time, you're like, oh, he fell in the ravine. He must have passed out and woken up.
Right.
But you still feel uneasy. And like going backwards, you're like, oh, yeah, that's a horrible cut because 8 years have passed.
Right.
But it was a cool little like jarring like, I don't feel good about this.
Yeah. The train sound effect happens when he's falling in. And then when they cut the trains, it's like an abrupt no train sound. And that's sort of like the giveaway. I always was a little creeped out by the old people at his former home, who are just like, oh, are you lost? And then he runs upstairs and there's, basically like a Hugh Hefner type character.
Hugh Hefner.
Right.
Who doesn't say like, hey, get out of my house.
Who the crap are you?
Right. Yeah, he's just like, can I help you? And you're like, ooh, no.
Well, he says, what's the matter, son? And I was like, what? Yeah. You don't know this kid.
Right.
It's weird. And then he's like, call the cops.
Yeah. Only after he like crumbles on the stairs and starts crying, and he's like, "Oh, call the police."
Yeah, we got another one.
Yeah, this happens all the time. Well, so this all kind of leads us. This all leads us to the reality of the situation that it's been 8 years later. The police, are like, "Man, this kid's been missing for all this time. He's pronounced dead." And then I remember the reunion with his families as being so kind of terrifying to me as a kid. That when he reunites with mom and dad, they look older. But then I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what?
Mom looks so scary. Her like face with that like pulled back hair, she was terrifying. Makeup. Yeah.
And I think that's what they did. They were like, okay, in the 70s you're going to wear makeup, and in the 80s her makeup was really the only thing they changed. They basically didn't.
And also it was the middle of the night.
That's true. She probably wouldn't have been wearing makeup at that time anyways. But the lighting.
But Jeff was dressed for the occasion with his little rolled up sleeve shirt and his new glasses.
Well, he was 16 years old. He was probably out with his friends that night.
Okay, we need to send you a picture of young Daniel, because 8-year-old Daniel looks like he could be the lost brother of 8-year-old Jeff. Same like shorts, same glasses, same haircut. We'll send you a picture.
I need to see that.
It's amazing.
The Geek State needs that picture.
Yes. Yes. It could be printed on the currency of the Geek State.
All of this kind of leads us to, he's at the doctor's office and they're running some brain scans. That gets the attention of NASA. This is where we get the guy. Yeah.
First of all, what kind of hospital in Fort Lauderdale, Florida is like, quick, we got to send this to NASA? And also, what kind of like doctors and nurses are like, he's speaking binary directly to the computer?
It's transmitting in alpha waves with complex frequency patterns in them.
What's going on? I don't know.
I know I fell. The alpha waves are coming in at 12.78 cycles per second.
He's communicating directly with the computer in binary code.
How the hell is he doing that?
I have no idea.
You can't know that in real time in 1986.
And we have a printer that will print out what his mind
quickly
is.
To the large format printer to print this dot matrix schematic of a spaceship given to the computer in binary by a child's mind. I figured it all out right now. Well, and I didn't think our computers were messing up.
Let's think about it. In the 80s, if a kid's brain pumped out a picture of what looks like a spaceship, who would you call? Like, to find maybe answers about that. I would.
Yeah, but look at what the brain popped out. Would you not also call a guy that sells walnuts and be like, hey, this kid's got a walnut on his brain.
He's got walnuts on the brain.
It's a nut brain.
And binary. Yeah, it's a nut brain. We got another nut for you.
Yeah, no, I can see your point on there, but that's how we get introduced to the whole NASA thing and the whole like we'll only hold him for 48 hours and
Johnny Fever, who works for NASA now.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Because the great turkey debacle.
Yeah,
he had to find other employment.
It did take me a little bit to I was like, man, he's so familiar. And I was like, oh, that's right. He's from WKRP in Cincinnati. Like,
I just expect a record scratch anytime he comes on screen.
But he plays a really good, that scientist kind of character who's also kind of a jerk. And
he's not really a good scientist. He's just sort of like, I really got to know about this ship, and I don't really care about the safety of anyone.
Yeah. From seeing NASA stuff from growing up, I feel like the logo was changed just enough to sort of make you go, oh yeah, that's the NASA logo, but it's not really the NASA logo.
Right, because when he goes into his room, they give him that cap. And I thought the same thing too. I'd have to go back and look at what the logo was in the 80s to see if it's similar, but
I will tell you that I had a ton of those slick material hats with all kinds of stuff like scout camps and all kinds of stuff embroidered on them. Like when I saw that hat, I was like, oh yeah, I had one of those. I mean, it didn't say NASA, it said, something else, but that hat, I was like, oh, I know that hat.
Definitely.
So.
This is also where he's discovering like music videos and all the stuff that he missed. And it's also our first introduction to Sarah Jessica Parker when Ralph, the robot, mail carrier,
robot assisted labor facilitator,
who apparently has password clearance on this base.
Can go anywhere it wants to. It's totally one of those like acronyms. It's like, we want it to be Ralph. What does it say?
Right. How can we do this?
Ralph. And we need a robot that has basically one human-sized compartment.
Right. For the meals, Sarah Jessica Parker, this is her very first feature film that she ever did. She plays Carolyn McAdams, and she's got a little bit of purple hair and kind of gives him kind of the update on kind of the state of like what are the 80s like, and even throws down the some Coke some like Coca-Cola reference when he's like, bring me back a Big Mac, fries, and Coke, and she's like, what do you well, that depends, you want new Coke, classic Coke, Diet Coke, caffeine free Coke.
Yeah,
I will say, and I don't know, Daniel, if this struck you too, when he walks into that room, there's a bunch of toys on his bed.
Toys? That was my dream. That's why I wanted to get kidnapped when I was a little kid, because after you're brought home, there's always a room full of toys that you like saw at Toys R Us but never could like get at Toys R Us.
It's the creepiest thing you've ever said. Like, I wanted to get kidnapped for the toys.
That's way not the creepiest thing. Maybe on a podcast that's recorded, but
maybe.
No, but yeah, when he opens the door, and I was just like, oh. But I also thought, okay, he's a bad guy because he's like trying to buy your love. I mean, it would have worked.
Yeah. And this kid is super into the hat, doesn't seem that interested in any of the toys.
Yeah, he doesn't even touch the Transformers, and there's a G.I. Joe like vehicle and other everything from that era is right there on that bed. And he's just like, yeah.
But is it because he was like, I'm from 1978, I don't know what any of this stuff is?
Yeah, give me $1 and a Frisbee and I'm set.
Right. He has no affinity for any of that stuff at the time. But I look at it now and I'm just like, man, that's all the stuff. That's
so good. It was coolest.
All the cool things. And the other thing that kind of struck me too is he doesn't change he wears the exact same clothes like the entire movie.
Right. If they saved everything from his room, it seems like they would have had more clothes, because he's still wearing, like, he puts back on the clothes from when he fell in the ravine. It's like that would have been in the laundry. Let's get real.
Yeah, mom would have been like, you've been gone for 8 years. This probably needs to get washed or thrown away.
Also, can we jump back for just a second? When he's in the police station and he's sitting in a chair, and behind him it's like the missing juvenile section of the police station, because it's like him in a chair and then behind him are a bunch of posters that all say missing juveniles. So it's like, that's when you find a missing juvenile, you take him to that section and you just match them up. And it was just, it's something I noticed. I don't know.
Oh, gosh. So we're almost like an hour into this movie and we have yet to really see more than the exterior of this spaceship. And all we know is it's at NASA. It's under lock and key. They can't get inside this thing. But then the spaceship starts to talk to him a little bit, and he gets in the Ralph. And first, okay, who told? Like, Carolyn obviously sent Ralph in the room to help him break out. But did she also program it to go to the spaceship, or is David somehow controlling Ralph from the inside? Because that to me is like, I don't understand how that happens.
Or is it Max? Because Max is the one that tells him, like, get in the Ralph unit.
Oh no, that's right.
Yeah, because it's Max's voice that's talking to him. But also, so they're all wearing. So they, first of all, they can drive down the middle of a freeway with a spaceship on the back, and nobody.
Everyone's like, it's cool.
Yeah,
there's a tarp over it.
Yeah, they get it into the hangar. They're wearing like hazmat suits, and then they just like lower plastic, and they're like, "Well, that'll protect us."
Plastic protects you from radiation. If it's science.
Right.
It's how that works. NASA, they're smart people. They have space plastic. It's all very thought through.
Oh, that's what I thought of. I'm skipping ahead a little, I guess, but like when we see this spaceship and then when it finally opens up and we see inside, I was like, oh, remember in the 80s when everything in space meant shiny?
Right.
Chrome.
Like
yeah.
now it's all like dirty and gritty and like Guardians of the Galaxy kind of space. But like in the 80s, if it was like a silver, I remember watching the movie Wing Commander. With Matthew Lillard and Freddie Prinze Jr. And they were drinking from silver cups, and I was like, "Ooh, space cups," because they were, chrome.
Right. And this is this is post Star Wars, so the lived-in universe aesthetic had already established. But I think the chrome look is not only kind of a throwback to the kind of the older kind of days of space stuff, but also let's talk about the visual effects while we're kind of talking chrome, because I think that might have played more into why the ship was chrome, because at the time to do something in computer graphics was really difficult, and this has a this is the very first time a 35 millimeter feature film used what's called image-based lighting in a 3D effect. It's not the very first time that CGI was used in a movie, but it's the first time that we've seen something that looks photo real, and the lighting and the reflections reflect that of the environment. So it kind of has that kind of record as being, the first. And I think it honestly, while it looks dated, I think it still really holds up.
Yeah, I think it mostly holds up. Like it looks like an older movie, but it's cool as hell.
Well, and so when the steps come down, all I could see was like there was a G on each of the steps, and I was like, oh, well, that's going to pay off. That's going to be who made it, or like. But then I was like, nope, that's just secure,
design.
That's just safety. Yeah,
it's grip.
Just a little design thing.
And all I thought was, man, that's got to be hard to clean the inside of that ship. Like just fingerprints everywhere.
Well, he's got all those little creatures.
Like,
that's their chores that they have to do. The Puck Baron just gets out and slowly moves his way across the ship with some fabulosa in a some sort of polishing rag. It uses some really cool techniques, like when they do the first class maneuver. This is when the ship like stretches and changes its shape. And they do that it's called a dolly zoom, where the camera moves in close to the subject but zooms out at the exact same time, and
it looks like the end of the thing is getting really long.
So that's how cool. That's all done in camera, and then it takes off and goes really fast, and like that is the coolest thing. Now again, it's like we're an hour into this movie, and Jessica, I was thinking the same thing. Like this movie's 90 minutes long, so we only have like 30 more minutes left, and that's all spent on the spaceship. And I thought in my memory that they had this, big epic adventure, when really what they did was go up, go down, go 20 miles out to the cow pasture, and a brief stop in Tokyo.
Right. And then they identified instantaneously. Like he was able to be like, oh, this is Tokyo.
Yeah, we're not in New York. This is Tokyo.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You don't know. I'm the Navigator. But let's talk about Max. Okay, so Max is the AI for this drone ship. And when Max begins talking, he's got a very different personality. He's very straightforward. Well, you're the Navigator, and is like very robotic and stuff. And it's not until Max scans David's brain and kind of downloads all of that content does he kind of become human in a way. Like he has personality now. It's also when we discover that Max is voiced by Paul Rubens, which they kept as a secret at the time. Paul Rubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, had just come out with Pee Wee's Great Adventure or Big Adventure. That had just come out like the year prior. And so in the credits, he's listed as Paul Mall, which messed me up for the longest time as a kid because I was like, that's Pee Wee Herman's voice. And then I would look at the credits and go, no, it's not. It's this guy named Paul Mall.
Paul Mall.
Like,
now, was that he's Max's voice the entire time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Because I was impressed. I mean, after he does the brain scan, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Paul Rubens. But before, like, I guess I've never heard him speak not normal in a Pee Wee verse.
Right. And there might have been some post-processing done on his voice, just to make him sound more robotic and
maybe
modulated a little bit.
But it's such a.
And so this is before Paul Rubens had his fall from grace.
Oh, much earlier.
Yes.
This is
much earlier.
Because right after this, he does Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why I think I saw this movie after, maybe a couple years into Pee Wee's Playhouse, because I only knew Pee Wee from Pee Wee's Playhouse. So I'm thinking I saw this on ABC's Sunday Night Movie.
Oh.
Probably. I feel like it was a pretty in regular rotation.
That's kind of my memory of this whole thing. So really the only adventure is they end up really far away from Fort Lauderdale, and David, being the navigator, has to fly the ship home. And this comes, the learning how to fly comes after he kind of insults Max and is like, you're the inferior life form, and they call each other geeks, which in the 80s was derogatory. And,
yeah.
And so that stood out. And then we get to the Beach Boys moment where they try to ask directions and they hear weird music, and he's like, music, what is that? And he flips through the channels, and we get the Beach Boys I Get Around montage. And funny story on that, I fell in love with that song. It's the very first time I heard that song. And
oh wow.
So and again, growing up in my family, we didn't listen to I'm gonna use the word secular music. And that wasn't what was played on the radio. So this is one of those first songs, even though it was an oldie, that stood out to me. There used to be a restaurant that was 50s themed, not too far from my house. And they used to, on Thursday nights, kids ate free. And my dad would take myself and my friend Noah and my sister and one of her friends to this place called Thunderbirds. And they had a free jukebox. And I feel sorry for every person that ever was there on a Thursday night, because all I would do, I pressed those two buttons, the letter button and the number button, over and over and over again. And it played I Get Around on loop while we were there.
Oh, wow. Not all Beach Boys, just I Get Around?
Nope, just I Get Around. And it's...
Nice. And would you pantomime using those cool
Oh yeah, it was almost very pod racing. He's got kind of like these pod racing controls, to fly this ship.
Part of it that always bothered me is the little pedals where he's tapping his feet. I'm like, if those exist, they should be doing something.
Yeah, that's like a rudder or something.
Yeah, what are you doing, man?
Right, it's it's the brake system. Are you just slamming on the brakes in that thing? Yeah, that does make very little sense. Eventually, get back to heading back to Fort Lauderdale, talks to his brother Jeff. Jeff's gonna do some fireworks, and that leads him to coming home, and he has that realization that there's not a home for me here anymore. This is my family, but it's not my home, basically. Right. It's like that real sad moment where he has to make that decision to go back in time and just risk the chance of being vaporized, as Max says. And that's kind of a really cool sequence that I remember being kind of terrifying at the time of watching it, as a kid, oh no, what would I have done, had been placed in that situation. And it works out, everything works out really well at the end, and that's really good. One of the things that also stood out to me is not only the Beach Boys music, but the soundtrack by Alan Silvestri, who's also done things like The Avengers.
Oh.
Yeah, I put in the notes, at the very, very, very beginning, when they're doing all the fake outs with the frisbee and all the little things that look like they're going to be a spaceship, but just kidding. It's like
it's a blimp.
Everyone's looking at the Goodyear blimp or whatever. It had all those like high pitched tones.
Yes.
And in my notes, I was like, "Ooh, I felt those high pitched tones in my guts. It felt like an old friend."
Same. Like my nostalgic reaction to hearing the music was very strong. Like where the music played such a part of my memory of this film, and I don't know why. There's not a theme that really stands out. Like there's no. There's no.
Yeah, like I couldn't hum the theme from the Flight of the Navigator, but
like at the end, it's just what it is. It's very of the time, but it's there is no standout melody, but it's great.
Yeah, but it took me like right back to that place.
Yeah. What after watching this, Jessica, recently, and of course, having the nostalgic memories, how do you feel like overall this film, still holds up?
I think for the most part, it holds up really well. I really enjoyed it. I think the story carries through. It was simple enough that it kind of like is a little bit timeless. It still got me in the feels where he's like crying for his parents. He's like, where's my mom and dad? I was just, I know. So yeah, I liked it. I thought it held up pretty well.
He's a for a kid actor who hasn't done much and except most recently tried to rob a bank.
Rob a bank?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see this documentary. I don't know if it's out yet or not.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's called like Life After the Navigator, and it's basically the story of how he basically had a very child actor life. So he was in a few things.
Oh no!
Ultimately, ended up robbing a bank. So.
Yeah, I was really kind of hoping that there would be like if you type in his name and then like today, and that picture was a mugshot. And I was like, oh no, come on!
Oh.
I don't know why I expected differently, but was kind of hoping that he was still doing something. Kind of like how the kid that played Elliot from E.T. is still acting. And then revised his role recently in that.
I was going to say he was in that commercial.
Which, if it had not been for Baby Yoda, I think that commercial would have gone way more viral.
Yeah.
But you just can't compete with all the memes. Had there not been Baby Yoda memes, that E.T. thing would have gone, I think, a lot more. Some things to me that didn't really hold up were some kind of problematic stuff that would definitely not be a part of a Disney film today.
Yep, there were a couple.
There's a few. The two that stood out to me were when we go to Big Al's, which is the gas station, and right before they leave, Max pops out and is like, hey buddy, oink oink, lay off the Twinkies. Or too many Twinkies.
Body shaming.
Yeah.
Not cool, Max.
And I think
be more evolved.
And I think Jeff says the R word.
Yes, he does. I have that's in my notes. I was like, R word.
And it's funny how that was when we were kids in the 80s, like how often I remember that being said. So it's
and in that same context.
Right. But it's weird now. You hear it and you're like, ooh, it's very cringy.
But really, I think those were the only two things that were, we don't do that, guys. I mean, there was some of the parenting stuff about like, yeah, I know my 12-year-old has a box of fireworks in his room. Like some of that stuff, I'm like, it was a different time, I guess, or they had to do it for the movie. But those were the only two things that jumped out at me as like completely inappropriate.
And so
they were both real brief.
Daniel, for someone who only recently saw this, so watching it with modern eyes, how do you feel like this film holds up?
I think it holds up really well. Like the R word was very jarring, and like we both immediately were like, oh, wow. But even like I can tell that the special effects are, from the 80s, but they're still like good. Like they're not like Mystery Science Theater 3000 level. Like they're. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is it. It all jives. I enjoyed watching it. I could see where the younger me would have loved it and probably, got a dog and a Frisbee and
named him Bruiser. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, just but so having been like adjacent to it growing up, I think that's where my nostalgia comes from. Is like, oh, I remember the commercials, and I'm sure I had friends that were really into it.
Oh yeah.
So
it's funny because when this film is, it's well known, but it's also not at like a cult classic level. Like there's not a lot. If you go on YouTube, there's not a lot of talk and conversation about this movie. It's exciting and surprising in some ways that this is a film that Disney Plus put on the service at launch, and I'm super glad they did, alongside like The Rocketeer and some other films. But this, I'm hopeful because there has been in long development a reboot, a remake of this film that has been through many different hands. So the most recent update for that reboot was in 2017. But like Colin Trevorrow has touched it for a little bit, and some other directors have kind of had it in their hands for a little bit. But now, Disney's going to get some metrics on, how many people are watching this. And if you haven't ever seen it, if you're in the geek state, highly recommend you go check out Flight of the Navigator.
Definitely recommend.
It's only 90 minutes.
Right.
And it's family friendly, so you can watch it with your kiddos.
There is one curse word, but that's it.
Oh yeah, about the door. Get the GD door open.
Well, no, and actually, so kind of in the trivia section here on IMDb, as I was going through, kind of reading about kind of the making of this. This isn't actually it wasn't originally a Disney film. It was an independent film that was being produced by Viking Film and the Producers Sales Organization, who put up 2/3 of the budget. And Producer Sales Organization put up 2/3 of the budget, while the rest came from Viking Film, a Norwegian company. Walt Disney only got involved right at the end to pick up all the rights for the film to be its distributor, because the film didn't have any kind of thing. And now there were probably some changes made. If you track down the original trailer for it, Max's voice is different. I feel like that was a Disney choice. Paul Rubens would later, in the next year, appear on the Star Tours ride as the voice of Rex, which is the robot that pilots the Star Cruiser on Star Tours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is Paul Rubens' first time working with Disney, with it following up with Rex. And then he's also the voice of the Rex droid at Oga's Cantina at Galaxy's Edge. So he continues to do work as a robot. What's interesting about this, also, the fact that it was a Norwegian company, that chunk of money that the Viking Film producers had, they had to shoot that. There was that money was tied that the movie that 1/3 of the movie had to be shot in Norway.
Nice.
So while most everything else that we saw in this movie took place in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, Florida, everything we saw inside the ship was in a warehouse in Norway.
Huh.
So that made sense because all you needed then was the kid,
right,
and the puppeteers that were puppeteering all the creatures and Max, and then when Joey the kid actor, when his time ran off because kids can only work so long, they had another kid who is the double, and he's only seen from behind.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
And so all the shots of him from behind are a stunt double. And the director said that the kid didn't speak English. So when he would be yelling stuff out like left, and then the translators would yell out left, it would be too late and he would need to be going right, and how challenging that was, to shoot that stuff. Another interesting thing that I never knew, and will definitely be on the lookout for next time I go to Walt Disney World. If you're in Tomorrowland, and if you go to one of the drink stations on top in Tomorrowland, there's a red spaceship, and that spaceship up top is one of the props, one of the full size spaceships from Flight of the Navigator they just refurbished.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
So you can Google that.
Check that out.
I'll post a picture of that on our social media, so check that out on our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can search for us, The Geek State, and you'll find us there. So you can see that picture, but it's super cool. It's like, okay, it's right there. And the other ship used to be on the Hollywood Studios backlot tour when that exists, but they don't have that anymore.
I remember seeing that, I think in like the early 90s when we went to Disney with my brother.
Oh, cool.
You see it just hanging out back there with a Star Wars snow speeder, I think was also back there.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Seems about right. So out of let's give it a rating. Let's come up with, this is the first time we've really done a vintage from the vault kind of movie. So let's see. Let's give it how many fireworks? We'll give it a fireworks scale. Scale of 1 to 10. Jessica.
I would give it 8 fireworks.
Dan?
Yeah, I'll give it 7.
And I'm going to give it, just based out of nostalgia, 11 fireworks.
There you go.
Go see it. It's on Disney Plus. It's only 90 minutes. I think everyone should see it.
You should for sure check it out.
Absolutely. It's so much fun. It's such a good family film and a fun adventure. Even if it doesn't make a lot of sense, kind of. It's just sort of a fun little journey. Now there is some
90 minutes.
While I was searching for stuff, research kind of for this, I came across a YouTube video that was like, here's a deleted scene from before Disney bought it, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch. This is cool. I've never seen this. So I'm watching it, and it's a scene that I've seen before, and it's when the ship is exiting the hangar, and it turns into the first class maneuver, and then it flies super fast away, and then it cuts to a scene from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because you know how Sarah Jessica Parker sees behind the chain link fence at the time, and it cuts to that scene where like Linda Hamilton gets vaporized. I was like, oh man, like dang it, this video got me, and I had to watch like 4 minutes of that scene just to get to the joke. But anyways, Flight of the Navigator, highly recommend. Go check it out.
Let's look around the region and take our pick of the week.
Shut up and take my money.
All right, every week we like to recommend something that we think you might also like. It's kind of our Geek State stamp of approval, and since James isn't here, I guess the rights to go first go to another person with a first letter of J in their name. So Jess, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week, it's a little bit of a throwback, but well, I say throwback, it's a recent show, but I have finally, after everyone told me, caught up on Schitt's Creek. It's so funny. The first few seasons are on Netflix. The final season is coming out starting in January on Pop TV. So if you've never watched it, go back, watch Schitt's Creek. It's so funny. The characters are all the worst and also the best.
Yes.
And I could not recommend anything more highly. So Schitt's Creek, the final season's coming out soon. I'm very, very excited.
It's very bingeable too, and I still go back
super bingeable.
I still go back to wanting. I watched the episode where Moira is selling the wine. Like
yes, her burglars. And fun fact: if you have the volume up high enough and you have an Amazon Echo in your house, it will bing like 400 times an episode. It won't ever like catch anything, but it always thinks it's trying to say her name.
Yeah.
Oh, because Alexis.
Yeah, Alexis. Oh, but so it's a really good show. You think you're gonna hate everyone, and you end up loving everyone. And Catherine O'Hara has this accent from nowhere, and it's the best.
It's the best. I agree. I still haven't finished. I'm still kind of playing that like. I heard about the show. It was really good. I just haven't got a chance to watch it all. So it's kind of nice that there's all these episodes ready to go, and it's not overwhelming.
I would go as far as to say it's simply the best.
Dan, what's your pick of the week?
Okay, so my pick of the week is a book. I listen to Audible books while I'm sometimes working and sometimes driving to and from work. And I recently listened to a book called A Man Called Ove, but it's spelled O-V-E. Okay. It is by a Swedish author named Fredrik Backman. and he has a couple of books out. I've just got one of his other recent ones, but it's a really kind of cute story about an old curmudgeonly man, which I hope to be someday.
You are currently.
And just some of the adventures he has. He lives in like a little community that he's lived in forever, and then he gets some new neighbors, and sort of they just move their way into his life, and it's just a really cute. It gets you in the feels, as my wife always says. But a really good story. And I really like listening to books. I think that's a good way to listen to maybe a book that you want to read, but maybe don't have the time to sit down and read.
Sure. Yeah, the commute's a perfect time for it. When you're not listening to the Geek State, you can pop on an Audible.
Exactly.
My pick of the week is a movie series. It's a documentary series on Netflix. It's called The Movies That Made Us, and I thought this show was a good one to pop in that recommendation. First of all, it just came out. It's made by the same folks that did The Toys That Made Us, which is also fantastic.
Also really good.
Right. Really good. They even made the My Little Ponies like interesting. Like
they are interesting.
Well, I mean, the story is definitely interesting. The Movies That Made Us is on Netflix, and the one that I watched was I'm still working my way through is the Ghostbusters one, and
yeah, we did too. That's a great one.
It's a great one. I love the little thing where they're talking about like Slimer and how he has to try to make it look like he's like basically finished with the design, and then all of a sudden it's like the word comes down from the top. They're like, yeah, make this look like Jim Belushi,
right?
John
Belushi, and he is like, oh no, and he doesn't do anything with it, and they're like, that's perfect. I love all that behind the scenes stuff, and it's really cool, and I hope that they make more in this series, because it definitely is worth checking out. Something else that's worth checking out is our social media networks and channels and whatever. Join us over on Twitter. You can find us at the Geek State Pod. On Instagram, we are the Geek State Podcast. And if you just type facebook.com/the Geek State, you can click that like and get all the updates about what's going on in the show. We oftentimes ask for feedback, and we feature that feedback on the show. And the show's all about this community. It's us. We are all in the Geek State. So join us over there on social media, like all that stuff, and interact with the show so you can be on it and be a part of this whole thing, be a part of this podcast as well. So from myself, from James, who is currently helping Grandma move, and for Dan and Jess, stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Were those geeks, David?
Yes, Max. Those were geeks.
Woohoo! And this is the part of the show that we just pretend is off the cuff, and then we put it at the end of the episode.
Oh, is that what this is?
Okay.
Yep. This is what this is. It's that thing if you forgot to stop the podcast, and it's like, oh, they're still talking?
Oh my goodness, we're still recording.
Uh-oh. Heavens to Betsy. Let's press this button to stop the recording.